This is the far north food forest. It didn't start this way. 20 years ago it was just a croft, a dream, even a question. Could we grow enough to live on? Could we build something that fed us and sheltered us and gave back more than it took? I don't know if you can remember the first time that you flew, but for me it was on a microlight of all things. If you've seen one, you know it looks like a tubular coffin with a kite on the top and a propeller just behind you. On the day I arrived at the airfield, and the guy that was taking us up, he gave me a helmet, which I was quite pleased with, although I sort of thought, what would I need that for? And we headed up into the sky. It was pretty windy. I thought, is this not too windy? But after a while we got up into the clouds, and the serenity and the peace that I felt up there, despite the sound of the propeller behind me, it was amazing. And then suddenly the propeller stopped. And I thought, what's going on here? And we glided down closer and closer to the ground. And I was beginning to think there was going to be some sort of a crash here. So I was bracing myself by grabbing hold of the guy in front of me. And then, as my heart was sort of in my mouth, we suddenly gently moved into the distance and peacefully away. And when I got down to the ground, I said to the guy, what happened there? He said, oh, wasn't your intercom working? I was telling you that one of the things you have to do to get your licence is, learn how to glide in an emergency down to a field without the use of the engine and the propeller. I said, well, no, I didn't realise that's all. And that was my experience of flying. And the reason I tell you that is it reminds me very much of trying to run a food forest. You read the books and you look up the advice that people have given you, and then suddenly you feel like disaster has struck and you don't know where you're going or what you're doing, and you need somebody to tell you what to do. And then you begin to realise that there's a different feeling in a forest. It's not just about your complete control. It's about allowing the ecosystem to move smoothly and to move forward together. And things balance out eventually. You think, oh, there's too many caterpillars here, and then the birds appear. Or you think, this tree is struggling, what am I going to do about this? And something else happens every time to balance things out. So it's forever not just transformational to the area around you, but to you. It transforms you into something different and something, I think, better as you're more aware of the life around you. So we started by planning out, obviously, and we had some ideas which we'll show you later in this video initially. A lot of reading of botanical books and gardening books. There was a lot of study involved at first to try and get things started well. We had to tidy up. The place was a mess. The cesspit was exploded. There was nothing that had actually really grown very well. We read John Seymour self-sufficiency books, and also we were raising a family at the same time. I started to write children's books, which really gave me a feel for the sights and the sounds and the nature of the land itself. And for my wife too, who was drawing many of the pieces of artwork for our early books. Then we got into willow and started to dry out some of the areas that were really, really damp, but also create this barrier between us and the wind, this sacrificial barrier within which we could then grow older trees to feed the land and fruit trees and so on. So we'll have a look at that too. Before I understood the forest, I'd imagined it, and I wrote the children's stories, imagining, I suppose, the monster, but also feeling the wind, looking at the moss growing. They sort of helped me to see and helped me to listen. It was sort of a mental beginning, really, a way to connect with the land through story that would help me later on. And so, in a strange way, the injury that I've got now, which started off with a ruptured hamstring and then changed into complex regional pain syndrome, has also made me slow down. So this can affect the blood movement around your body, so the blood from the foot doesn't move up and down unless it's sort of manipulated. It'll affect certain digits on my feet, for example, that will move of their own accord. You'll get a long burning feeling, or you'll get pins and needles. They don't just happen in the area that you've ruptured and damaged in the first place. The communication between the nervous system and the nerves, say, in the foot going to the brain have got confused. So as it sends messages, it seems to rebound off the spinal cord and send these messages to other limbs, which the brain then also thinks has got a problem. And you'll get pins and needles in there, or you'll get a burning sensation in there. And even simple things like turning the pages of a book seem difficult. Having CRPS has made me move differently, or less obviously with my hands and legs, and more with my heart. I notice more, I feel the forest differently, and I realise in some ways I should have listened this way from the start. The forest is an ecosystem, but it's also a mirror. It shows us how to grow together. It shows us the things that are important to us. It throws the mirror in front of us, and we see the sort of garden that we would like to grow, but that changes as more plants and more animals begin to adapt and adjust. It teaches us balance in what I suppose is sometimes an unbalanced world, and perhaps that's where we find the stillness and the peace. It reminds us that we do belong to something, that we're not separate from nature, but part of its story. And in the UK, I saw a recent article, I think it was in The Guardian, saying that the people of the UK are now some of the most disconnected from nature in the world. And I think we all need to think on a little bit more about our connection. We're going to look at some willow now, and perhaps cut a little bit up, and in the process we'll go through some ideas for starting off your food forest. So you can see how the leaves have disappeared now as winter has fallen, and one or two still clinging on. And on a still day this time of year, we get so much rain, but if there's no rain falling, you can almost hear it being drawn up like a sponge in the peat under the ground here. So these willows have been cut down almost to the ground, a little bit like coppicing, and it produces these nice thin whips that for us we can cut into maybe pieces about 10 to 16 inches, maybe 20 to 40 centimetres. You want to cut them so you can tell which side is up, so I tend to put a little bit of a slant at the top. You can see the buds pointing in an upward direction, but if you're looking at them quickly, it might be an idea just to cut sharp at the top and flat across the bottom. But also you want to have them at a good height so you can just get them into the ground. If you want to push them into the ground, you can push them into the ground quite easily here. In some places you might need a screwdriver or something like that to make the hole for you. But yeah, it's one of the things we started off our croft with, our food forest with, and that's something we're cutting up ready now. And we will probably give most of these away. It's nice to be able to help others that are trying to start off either a food forest or just a forest itself, and willows are a good way of getting protection that you need. Okay, so looking back at those areas of design, those 4 creative areas that a food forest can bring change to the way that you live. So produce, food for you and your family, a fuel, a way to be able to heat your home, for example, furniture, things to use, utensils, medicine, animal food, even washing materials for your clothes, soaps, skin balms from the herbs that you grow. Point 2 on there was education, obviously in gardening, but in nature itself, in farming, in botany, in design as you create your garden, in marketing if you want to grow it bigger and sell to other people, a work ethic, work in general, the permaculture systems. There's so many educational areas that you can learn from having a food forest, and the ecosystems, the ecology of your site, including the plants, the soil, the climate, wildlife, water. How will you impact on each of these areas? How can you join them together? How can you fit into your area? Will it bring you a meaning to your life, appreciation of life? It will certainly help you appreciate those things around you more, maybe bring you solitude and peace, or it may bring you a social network that is much more suited to you. What sort of a food forest do you want? Where do you want it? How big do you want it to be? Look at the type of land that you have, the population around you if you want to grow to sell. What types of soil do you have? What resources are available, particularly water? What is your design? Always we're thinking about water, but also the materials that are available. You might want to look at windbreaks. What's the perimeter fencing like? Do you need to create rooms to protect yourself from wind? What plants and insects and animals are there around there? What will it enable you to keep? What would you like to keep? What do you want to eat? All these and many other things will come into your design, and these I've just mentioned just a few, so you can always flip back and have a look at those. But carry on and enjoy your food forest as we enjoy ours, and we'll have some more ideas for you very soon. Thanks for watching the Farmer Food Forest.